Hello, and welcome to this edition of the Tontine Trust audio podcast titled On the Matter of Fair and Equitable Tontine Design. I'm Richard Fullmer, Actuarial Strategist and Director of Asset Allocation for Tontine Trust. Tontines are a type of investment in which the account balances of shareholders who die are forfeited, divided up, and transferred to shareholders who are still living. Exactly how they are divided up and transferred is a critical element of tontine design. Everyone should care about this, whether they are investors, prospective investors, advisors, or regulators. A fundamental principle of tontines is that their design should be fair to all investors. This means that forfeited balances be transferred to survivors in an equitable manner such that no investor, and therefore no class of investor, is unfairly disadvantaged. But how? And what does this even mean? To help answer this, let's start with a few intuitive examples. Think about fair games. A game or bet is fair to all parties if each party's expected gain is zero. Consider the classic coin flip in which a player wins, say, $1 or €1 if the coin lands on heads, and loses, say, $1 or €1 if it lands on tails. There's a 50% chance of each outcome, and thus the expected gain is 0.5 times 1 minus 0.5 times 1 equals 0. If the expected gain were greater than 0, the player would have an advantage. Similarly, if the expected gain were less than 0, a player would have a disadvantage. Now say that the game involves rolling a six-sided die in which the player wins with a roll of 6 and loses otherwise. This game is fair when wins pay 5 times more than losses, because expected gain in that case is 1/6 times 5 minus 5/6 times 1. That equals 0. In a tontine, investors lose their balances when they die. Our objective then is to design a tontine such that the expected incremental gain to survivors fairly offsets the amount lost when they die. Keep in mind that this tontine gain, sometimes referred to as mortality credits, is an additional amount received above and beyond any underlying investment returns. The intuition for how this must be accomplished is remarkably similar to the simple games discussed earlier. Think of a member's account balance. When they die, the entire balance gets forfeited. If they survive, however, they will expect to receive a gain. So we want to set the expected loss equal to the expected gain. The expected loss is essentially the probability of dying in a given period times the account balance. So then the objective is to determine what tontine gain is required. The expected gain will match the expected forfeiture. Perhaps the most interesting insight we can make here is that the fair tontine gain of every member is a function only of that member's own probability of dying and the amount they've invested. This fact comes as a surprise to many. You might be thinking, hey, wait a minute, I don't want to be in a tontine with a lot of younger people, do I? The answer is, well, not if the tontine is designed unfairly. On the other hand, if it is designed fairly, it won't matter. And that's why fair design is so important. At this point, you might be saying to yourself, wait another minute. What about adverse selection? Isn't it true that only those who believe they have an average or better life expectancy are likely to invest in a tontine? And the answer here is probably yes. But keep in mind that the tontine designer will use mortality rates that reflect this fact. The same is true of insurance actuaries whose job it is to price and set reserves for annuities. So there's really nothing new there. Now, if you and I are different ages or different genders, our life expectancies will differ. Since a 90-year-old has a higher risk of dying next month than a 60-year-old, the 90-year-old must therefore receive a higher proportion of the tontine gains per dollar invested. Accordingly, members will expect to receive an increasing proportion of tontine gains per dollar invested as they grow older. Thank you for listening. If you're interested in learning more about tontines or Tontine Trust, please see our website, www.tontinetrust.com, or look for the article of the same name at blog.tontinetrust.com. Tontine Trust, revolutionizing retirement.